And the president's in Saudi Arabia right now, the first stop on his foreign trip since taking office. He announced $350 billion in investment with the kingdom, including a $110 billion arms deal. The president's next stop will be Israel. And joining me now to talk about what to expect, Amir Tibon, Washington correspondent for the Israeli newspaper Haaretz. Amir, we know the president had a big goal of trying to push forward some sort of peace agreement between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Do you think that's around the corner?
I think it's still important to President Trump, and everything that I've been hearing is that he puts an emphasis on this. He wants to get it done. But I'm not sure if this visit that just began yesterday and will move to Israel on Sunday is actually the right time to put it forward. Because Trump, first of all, this is his first foreign trip, as you mentioned, Rina. He's not a big expert on these issues. He doesn't have a lot of experience working on the Middle East. I think he will come and try to listen to both leaders when he's here in Israel, to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, to Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, hear their point of view, understand what's important to them, and then maybe try to calculate how he can put forward a peace initiative. Because to do it right now, immediately, I'm not sure he has the expertise. I'm not sure his staff is ready to do it. And also, we have to remember he's coming to Israel to this whole visit at a time of political crisis at home, which is not always the best setting to put forward a new ambitious peace plan.
We also know, Amir, that Israel was actually the source of highly sensitive intelligence that the president leaked to the Russians, openly leaked to the Russians. What do we know about that? How is the Israeli government reacting to that?
I think that during Trump's visit, the Israelis will do everything to try to tone it down. I don't think the prime minister is going to raise this issue. I don't think anyone in Israel wants to get into a fight with the president about this. The tactic that Prime Minister Netanyahu will likely choose will be to show some goodwill towards Trump, tell him, you know, we're not going to make a big story out of this, we're not going to make a mess about it, but then in return, he will expect Trump to be more flexible towards Israel, to understand Israel's concerns and demands when it comes to the peace process. And I don't know if this deal could work, because I think Trump, if he really wants to get a peace deal, he's going to have to push harder for it. And even if both sides don't like some of the things he puts on the table, he's going to do it anyway. But for now, I do believe that the intel mess that we saw last week, maybe for Netanyahu, could actually be a bit of a blessing, although for Israel, it's definitely not a good thing.
And Amir, you had some reporting this week about moving the embassy. So much talk about moving the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. What do we know? Is that going to happen?
Well, I mean, nobody knows if it's going to happen or not, but what we did have, our story in Haaretz on Friday, was basically trying to show what is the internal discussion in the Trump administration about this issue right now. Who's for it? Who's against it? It's a report I worked with our diplomatic correspondent, Barak Ravid. And basically what we saw, and we heard it from sources in Washington and in Israel, that there really is a very heated discussion about this in the administration that has actually been going on for many months, basically ever since Trump's inauguration. Some people around Trump, like his advisor, Stephen Bannon, who's with him now in Saudi Arabia, like David Friedman, the, some would say, controversial ambassador that he appointed in Israel with very strong right-wing positions on this, and also Nikki Haley, the ambassador to the United Nations, have spoken about the, you know, this is a promise that he made, he needs to do it, it's important, it will strengthen Israel. And then other senior officials in the administration, like the National Security Advisor, General McMaster, like General Mattis, the Defense Secretary, like Rex Tillerson, who was the Secretary of State, really speaking for their kind of departments, for the bureaucracy that they are in charge of, and explaining why this is problematic, why it could be dangerous even, why it could really complicate Trump's idea of pushing for a peace initiative. And so this is a discussion that's been going on for many months. And right now it seems, I will say it cautiously, Rina, it seems that the opponents have the upper hand. It seems like Trump understood that it's not going to be a great idea to do it during the Israel visit, although some of his advisors did want to see it happen now. And he's basically saying, look, I know I promised this and I will deliver on it, but I can't give you a date right now. It will take time.
And I'm curious, with the FBI investigations into the connections with Russia, how is that impacting how Netanyahu and also Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas view President Trump and the future of his administration?
Well, that's a great question. I think that one of the advantages that Trump brought with him to Middle East diplomacy was the idea that, you know, everybody's kind of afraid of him in this region. People think he's crazy, he's mad, he's unexpected. You can't know what he's going to do, and that's somewhat of an advantage because nobody wants to get him angry, nobody wants to get in his way. And I think you could really see that playing in his favor in the first month of his presidency with regards to the Middle East. For example, when he met Netanyahu in the White House in February, he told Netanyahu, you're going to have to slow down the settlements, and nobody in Israel made a fuss about it. And when he met President Abbas, you could really see the Palestinians going out of their way to please him and be cooperative. I think the problem now with the FBI investigations and with the whole Russia mess is that it makes Trump look a bit weaker. And once you're weak, these sharks in the Middle East, like Netanyahu, like Abbas, like other leaders in the region, they can smell the blood and they can realize that maybe they don't have to be as cooperative as they thought they would have to be maybe 2 or 3 months ago. So there's always this kind of correlation between the internal position and the international relations. But I have to say, if the trip becomes a success here in Tel Aviv and in Bethlehem and Jerusalem, and he goes back to Washington strengthened, then obviously that could also improve his situation when he tries to put something on the table with regards to regional peace.
And when President Trump flies to Israel tomorrow, it's sort of an interesting flight. Can you tell us about that when he goes from Saudi Arabia to Tel Aviv?
Oh, well, you know, we had a story about that last week because it's kind of a mystery. You see, there are no direct flights between Israel and Saudi Arabia, as most of the viewers who care about this probably know. But Trump is actually going to take Air Force One from Riyadh to Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport, at least for what we know right now, without any stops. And this is somewhat unusual. For example, you know, during the Bush administration, Condi Rice did this trip when she was Secretary of State. And what they would do sometimes is that before stopping in Saudi Arabia or in Israel, the plane would kind of almost land on the ground in Jordan, almost touch the ground, and then take up, just to create like a new flying log that doesn't show that it's a direct flight from Riyadh to Tel Aviv, because these two countries don't have official relations and there are no direct flights. But this is Air Force One. It's a different situation. And I think there's also something that is changing on the political and on the diplomatic scene, because the relations between Israel and some of these Arab countries in the region, like Saudi Arabia, are not the same as they used to be 10 and 20 years ago. There has been some kind of secret, quiet cooperation on intelligence issues, even some economic cooperation. In order to actually put it out there and become official, there has to be a peace agreement and the Palestinian issue has to be resolved. But we are seeing some small signs of change, and this flight could be interpreted as one of them.
Amir Tibon coming to us from Tel Aviv. Thank you for joining us, Amir.
Glad to be here. Have a good one.